The first major embargo for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was lifted on February 19, and many new details have been revealed. Hey everyone, it's Yggdrasiel, and today it is my pleasure to discuss just about every new detail that has been brought up as a result of the embargo being lifted. To that end, I've compiled information from many different articles and videos, and while there are a few more that are all over the place, the vast majority of them were either opinion pieces or simply didn't cover anything new. I've provided all of the articles and videos that I have used in the description down below for your convenience, and I will be sure to provide credits on screen as well for any footage or images being used. I've done my best to present all of the information so that it flows smoothly, as there are many previews that provide the same or similar details. I would like to let you all know that there is no spoiler-based information, however, so this video is completely open for any and all, be you a Blade veteran like myself, or a brand new recruit making their way to Mira for the first time. Now, just before we begin, as always, if you like what I have to say in this video, please consider leaving it a like, let me know your thoughts down below, and subscribe for more Xenoblade Chronicles, Monolith Soft, and Nintendo content. The vast majority of my viewers are unsubscribed, and every little bit of support really helps in motivating me to create more content. And with that out of the way, we've got a hell of a lot to discuss, so let's get stuck in. Now, just before we get to all the juicy new details, there were some restrictions with the preview embargoes, as there are with most previews before a game's release. Both Nintendo Life and The Gamer have gone on and stated that Nintendo has ruled out discussing or presenting any information after Chapter 4. In essence, this means that the main menu, in-game menu, prologue, character creator, introduction to NLA, and our first forays into Primordia and Noctilum are all fair game for discussion. What's more, per RPG site, online multiplayer features are disabled for everyone until the game's launch on March 20th, and they have provided a reminder that having an active Nintendo Online subscription will be a requirement to access the online multiplayer features for the game. With those caveats out of the way, let's start where any and all games actually begin, the main menu. The gorgeous main artwork for Xenoblade X takes center stage as the opening screen for the game, with Elma, Lyn, and Cross, our playable customizable avatar, and a beautiful scale on an overlook watching over NLA. And you may think, really Yggdrasil, it's the same as it was in the original, just of course looking a good bit better, but there is a tiny new detail here that makes things a little bit more personal. If you take a tiny look at Cross, you'll now see your own customized avatar, and not just a generic shot of Cross from the back with some gear slung over their shoulder. No, it's your genuine own character that you've designed and kitted out. Stand proud in your underwear like Nintendo Difference, or with whatever else you would like for a nice and enduring opening screen. Next then, you will see the usual options: start a new game, continue where you left off, load game, and settings. You may notice that there is no option, unlike with the rest of the Xenoblade games, to access new story content or DLC stories through the main menu. Again, per RPG site, this is deliberate. We don't appear to be able to access the new story content straight away, which works just fine by me. It'd be a bit jarring for the new story to be available right away when the vast majority of players likely have never even played Xenoblade X on the Wii U to begin with, to say nothing of the format of this game being vastly different than the numbered titles in the series. Now, one key difference here that is absolutely phenomenal, as you may have surmised from load game, it is that we have up to 3 save files for this game, as opposed to only 1 back on the Wii U. On top of that, autosave has made its grand entrance into this game, and I can't tell you how wonderful a feature that this will be. I can vividly remember losing over 3 hours of vital exploration progress back when I had first played the game, including beating mobs that only spawn during thunderstorms, and only to see all of this hard work of mine disappear the second the game crashed, and I realized I hadn't saved at all during that session. Have no fear, because autosave is here. It will cover you when you need it the most. From the footage I've seen so far, it seems to activate at certain intervals, so perhaps every 15 minutes or so if I had to take a guess. With that out of the way though, let's now get into discussing the system's menu itself, brought to you once again by Shack News. Unfortunately, while they have gone over every tab, they didn't actually click in on most of these sections, so we can't get the full detailed description of each actual setting. Though most are relatively self-explanatory anyway. First up, the Game tab will provide the Remember Cursor, which I believe is referring to a cursor for our Frontier Nav maps, Controller Rumble, menu control guides, which I'm not quite sure as to what that is, skip mission acceptance prompts, which will let us bypass some extra button clicks each time we accept a quest, and auto track mission, which I assume will automatically track a mission the moment we choose to accept it, potentially overriding missions we previously set to track. The Event tab allows us to turn subtitles on or off, and will allow us to adjust NPC dialogue text speed to a pace of our liking. The Camera tab lets us invert our axes for camera control, and we can increase or decrease the speed and responsiveness of the camera, which is very nice as I recall the camera is a little unwieldy at times or a little slow, especially while in tight corridors such as indoor locations. The Visual tab allows us to adjust game brightness, so all the blind folks like me can adjust to our comfort, and we can also toggle showing off our character's headgear. I would like to point out that it lists ground gear only instead of fashion gear, so perhaps fashion gear overrides this option if we choose to give our character fashion equipment for their head. The Field UI tab allows us to toggle off bits of information while exploring out of combat. Want to get lost without a care in the world? Turn off that mini-map. Let the minimalist and explorationist in you run wild and free across the Mira. Personally, I think I will be going with the same setup that Shack News has on screen, as I like to see some relevant information, but I don't really need to see the party stats out of combat. The Battle UI tab will give us several handy options to really tone down the clutter that barrages our eyes when combat can get a bit messy. Soul voice prompts can be hidden, but then you'll have to keep an ear out for your party members' calls for certain arts. Art descriptions can be hidden if you know what you're doing, and enemy targeting can be adjusted. Ally orders that you command can also be toggled to be activated right away for future encounters, or that can remain off if you want to change tactics on the fly with each new encounter unfolding. Marker display will let you toggle the markers over the heads of enemies, NPCs, and objects alike, and the same can be said for the icon display tab that lets you hide the icons of various missions and materials that you come across. The update notifications tab will hide, you guessed it, updates to information as you progress through missions and zone reconnaissance. The social notifications tab will be active once online features are enabled and lets you pick and choose what you want to show off to other members of your squadron, be that people popping in or leaving, sharing your achievements, or sharing in the achievements of others. I would encourage new players to hide achievements of other players, as there are hundreds upon hundreds of achievements in Xenoblade Chronicles X, some of which could include information or spoilery titles that I would rather you avoid. The Other Notifications tab allows you to toggle updates for new tips, hints, updates to the affinity chart, and survey rate rewards as you come across certain survey thresholds per each continent. The Online tab will let you adjust whether you want to be asked if you want to start an online or offline mode each time you open the game, and will also allow you to hide your online status if you choose to do so. The Sound tab then is a nice mix and matcher for all players, allowing you to adjust game background music, game sound effect volume, voice volume, and system sound effect volume. We also have a beautiful new feature that players have begged for and Monolith Soft has answered in kind, with Skell Flight background music. For those unaware, in the original game, Skell Flight music overrides the music of the zone you are exploring. What's more, if you happen to enter flight accidentally, the flight music would start from scratch, and then when you landed or cancelled flight, the region's music would then start from scratch. It was a design choice that personally took many players away from the immersion of their adventure, and is a choice that I am glad to see rectified in the definitive edition. As for what kinds of background music we can then choose from or toggle, we will have to see for ourselves when the game comes out. Our last tab is also something brand new to the game, and that is the voice language tab, and its sole purpose is to let us toggle the voice language being used. That's right, we actually have dual audio for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, allowing us to choose between the English voice cast and Japanese voice cast. Personally, I enjoy both, but it's incredible that we actually have this option. And now, after having gone through and selecting the settings for our game, it's time to actually hop on in and get to creating our character. Now, many different previews had some great coverage of the character creator, but Shack News and GamerGen have done excellent covers of just how far we can go with it. After selecting between a male or female avatar, we can select from a nice base selection of designs from which we can then adjust to our liking. After picking our base model, we can then modify our avatar's height, skin color, hair, eyes, makeup, and voice, and I will say it right now, please do not worry or think that once you are locked in, that you can't change your character at all. There will be options down the line for you to do so at your leisure. Simply pick what feels right to you in the moment, alright? You can even save and load your avatar presets, which is an entirely new feature, and it is more than welcome as we have 5 slots to go through, so if you want to make changes to your character, say to better match the type of fashion gear you have equipped, well, go right for it. Again, we do have 5 save slots total for you to assign these presets to. With regards to what else is new here, allow me to bring to your attention even more new hairstyles that have been found. You may recall in one of Nintendo's previous announcements, hairstyles for Nia and Mithra were found, but that's not all. GamerGen's preview went to town with customization and revealed and even recreated Pyra, Malos, Mio, and Shulk. What's more, the special tab for hair has more than just cowlicks this time around, and certain hairstyles will offer even unique accessories, such as Pyra and Mithra's hairstyles offering Mithra's tiara, and Mio's hairstyle offering her red sash. There's also been an addition made with voice selection, in that should you choose a voice and then regret it later on, you can directly change the voice for your character in the in-game menu at your leisure. With such a nice variety of new and returning styles and choices, the character creator should hopefully let everyone be able to immerse themselves in the world of Mira a little more nicely than before. So then, let's talk about that immersion and the technical parameters of the Definitive Edition. Now, I was hoping we might see something from Nintendo World Report, as they are usually the go-to people for accurate technical statistics, but thankfully Nintendo Life has us covered, reporting a solid jump in game resolution, up from the 1280 by 720p resolution and spotty frame rate capped at 30 frames a second, now at a more crisp 1920 by 1080p resolution, and the game still runs and caps at 30 frames a second, but it is reported by multiple outlets that it is far more consistent as compared to the original game, bar the usual set of circumstances such as crazy effects all popping off at once, and what have you. They've also reported a sharp decrease in loading times, and we have a perfect example of that through Video Chums, showing off a clip where it took less than 3 full seconds to load from New Los Angeles into the Blade Barracks, which is mind-boggling. That is less than a third of the loading time on average from the original game. Now, that's not to say everything is all hunky-dory though. Pop-ins are still a little prevalent, though they've largely occurred only in NLA for most reviewers. A lot of exploration footage has been crisp, with few artifacts popping up from time to time, but NLA seems to still suffer from quite a bit of items loading in. Perhaps that may just be due to the sheer amount of detail being confined into the city, but regardless, it's a bit of a shame still to see, so here's hoping patches down the line may help to mitigate this even further. At the very least, whatever we can see is greatly aided by upgrades to the lighting engine and the new design elements. CGMA Online, for example, highlights the hair meshes of the character models having far less artifacts, and was overly fond of the game's increase in texture quality. They also confirmed a relatively stable 30 frames per second experience on both handheld and docked modes. Nintendo Life has also discovered that for whatever reason, you can't go through cars and skells moving around in NLA anymore, so no more running right into vehicles. You gotta respect the rules of the road like everyone else on this strange planet we call Mira. Now lastly, with regards to specs and parameters, I would like to point out that the game's file size has recently been crunched once again, initially from 22.8 gigabytes from the Wii U down to 15 gigabytes, and just recently another crunch occurred, taking us down from 15 to now 13.4 gigabytes. I cannot understate or underscore just how brilliant and baffling Monolith Soft continues to present themselves. They are masters of file size compression and make every incorporated element of their game data matter. To take the base game, its derivative packages and DLC characters and quests and stuff, all of that into the definitive edition, that then has its own plethora of new elements, to say nothing of the size that items such as dual audio often have as well, and still come out with over a 9 gigabyte reduction. I mean, I just have no words other than that they have exceeded my expectations yet again. Bravo, Monolith Soft. But with that said, we've talked about the system, the main characters, the parameters, so let's talk about the game in earnest and see what's new, starting with exploration. Let's begin this section with perhaps one of the most impactful changes that will affect gameplay that the definitive edition has made. That is that blade levels, division points, and field skills are all largely gone. This is one of the larger mechanical changes being made into the game outside of combat, one that I'm not completely on board with, but I can see why it is being changed. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, as a member of Blade, you join up with one of the 8 sub-factions of your choice, and completing their designated tasks would net you division points. Acquire enough points and you go up a whole Blade level, which had an effect on several features such as increasing the amount of missions you can register for, improving your field skills, which we will also discuss shortly, and increasing the amount of reward tickets, now called material tickets, that you can obtain for completing online multiplayer tasks and quests. It stings a little bit to me personally, as I felt that growing from a rookie to an operative all the way up to a rank 10 soldier was rewarding and helped to show off just how far along you made it into the game. What's more, it also lowers the identity of each division within Blade, and again, at least for me, it used to be that becoming a Pathfinder would, reward you with those division points as you explore and survey more of Mira, or if you were an interceptor, fighting many of the enemies around Mira would net you points that way. Heck, if you just wanted to collect the blue orbs, the curators have you covered. In removing Blade levels and division points, the 8 sub-factions of Blade and your decision in picking which faction you like to join is now solely for lore, a bit of personal flair, and a tiny bonus of your desired choice based on what you select. I can see why it's not being brought forward, however, as depending on which faction you enroll with, obtaining enough division points could have taken significantly longer than if you had gone for another faction. It also inhibited exploration by locking down field skills until you reached a certain rank. As I brought up a little while ago, field skills were basically a rank from 1 through 5 that was required for you to open certain chests or interact with things out in the wild. With Blade level being removed, however, field skills are now largely obsolete and therefore will not be present either, at least mostly. Instead, what they've done is lock away specific chests that require you to progress quests later on in the game before accessing. This change I'm a good bit more okay with, because I can't tell you how many times I came back over and over again to the same chest only for it to be a rank 5 archaeology when I had just upgraded my mechanical field skill to 5, and so then I have to play for several more hours to rank up again. And speaking of changes, let's discuss changing the time. It used to be a bit of a hassle, honestly. Picture needing to fight a mob late at night, but then you had to have your character find a base camp or a bench out in NLA. These were the only locations that you could adjust the time from, but not anymore, as the definitive edition lets you freely adjust the time whenever you feel the need through the in-game menu. Much like with the other entries in the series, quests, enemies, and collectibles are all affected by time, so having the option to change it on the fly like with the rest of the other entries will be a welcome change. I'm sure that discovering base camps will still be relevant towards exploration percentage, so let's segue into the Frontier Nav and navigation systems next. We finally have a much more comprehensive view of the map, which can be accessed via the in-game menu or by simply pressing the Y button. It's something we all could have seen coming a mile away. Frontier Nav needs a new home since there's no gamepad like with the Wii U, and giving it a menu of its own was the clear and obvious choice. You can navigate the 3 menus of the Frontier Nav for fast travel, exploration percentages, and mining operations, all from the click of a button. And may I say what a sleek design and layout this version of Frontier Nav presents itself as, with many nice touches and quality of life features. For one, you can create and set 200 markers throughout the map, and you can also hover over the markers on the map for more details regarding quests, node types, affinity missions, and more. There are also plenty of new features seen at the bottom of the screen. Pressing the left stick will automatically pan the position of the cursor to your party's current location. Pressing the right stick will open a prompt to place markers. Pressing ZL will let us toggle the information, while ZR will let you swap between pages of the information presented. Pressing Y when looking at a mission through this will toggle tracking. The ZL button lets you filter what icons you see, and pressing X will open up a tab for map shortcuts. In the Segments tab, there will be some differences. For one, ZL will pull up a map legend, which I'm not quite sure what that may be as compared to holding ZL to just pull up the region intel. Pressing Y will open up survey rewards, which are brand new and honestly pretty big. Exploring and charting each continent will see you provisioned with survey rewards for every 5% of exploration, so 20 rewards per continent. These rewards range from credits to enhanced probes for the Frontier Nav, to consumable items and the brand new energy discs, a new resource that enhances the quick cooldown mechanic that I will discuss later on in this video. As for Frontier Nav itself, we can more cleanly see how mining probes are linked, and each probe location displays production, benefits, bonuses to combat, and the number of unexplored territories within each region. Each probe also highlights any common resource in the area that is of interest, and you can also press A to change the probe at the current location. A basic mining probe will always be available to activate, but at the cost of not being able to link that one up to adjacent probes. The bottom right shows us the total amount of Meranium we are obtaining during each period, the amount of profit we are earning, and the current cap of Meranium that we can hold at any one time. The Frontier Nav tab also has some changes for buttons on the bottom as well. For example, pressing down on the right stick automatically places a basic mining probe, as I mentioned earlier, and there are other inputs here that unfortunately we still need to see what these can fully do. At the very least, I will assume map shortcuts will be a list of handy teleports, such as fast traveling down to Blade Barracks or Armory Alley. Lastly, with Frontier Nav, I want to say that you shouldn't worry about opening it so often to check survey percentages. The survey rate will update automatically each time you raise it, popping up on the right-hand side of the screen. And now I'd also like to throw in a little more information for the follow ball feature and quest navigation here. Per Nintendo Life, follow ball navigation feels overall improved, offering better directions toward quests and materials alike. You can choose what your follow ball will target using the info panels in the bottom right corner of the screen, with only a single click of one of the right-hand buttons. In fact, quest navigation and managing your quests is reported to feel smoother overall. To select what quests we want to pursue, though, we'll of course need to open up the in-game menu, so let's jump on into that. Now, I want to give a massive shout out here again to Video Chums, as they were the only preview where I could find a look at our in-game menu. Though they only showed us the initial pop-up and not every single tab, but hey, I'll take what I can get. Now, there are 8 main tabs in the in-game menu. The Party tab will cover most of our character building details, consisting of our equipped gear called Ground Gear, our Fashion Gear, which is the gear we present our character with for aesthetic, our Combat Arts, Skills, Class Tree, Soul Voice menu, and our Overall Status, which will be a tab just highlighting all of our setup. While we do not get to see any of the other menus, we can infer that the Mission tab will show off our currently accepted missions and their progress, and the map will bring up Frontier Nav, which you could also bring up at any time by pressing the Y button. Active Members is a brand new section that I will discuss shortly. Intel will likely house the old features such as our achievements, but there are new archive systems that I will also discuss in due time. I expect that the time change menu will also be in here. The online tab should allow you to change between online and offline play, or allow you to change which squadron you are in, say if you want to join a squadron that your friends are currently active in. Save will bring you to the Save File tab, and System will present you to the usual myriad of system options. Now I would like to let you know, some options may only be accessed from the in-game menu as opposed to the System Settings menu in the opening screen. In the lower right corner of the in-game menu, we can see a brief overview of our character, showing off their level and class rank, total funds, and their material tickets, which is a rename of the reward tickets that we could use to purchase just about every single unique monster material in the game. They were largely from online gameplay, so I'm quite curious to see if they have provided offline means of obtaining these tickets so as to not pressure players to have an online subscription, or maybe they are thinking far ahead from now, say to a time where the Switch's online support system is ever shut down, like with the Wii U, as that system's shutdown heavily impacted the flow of reward tickets for the original game. We also can see our total Moranium points, which we can obtain from mining, and our current Moranium cap, which we can increase over time. And we can also see our battle points, which is a resource you obtain from doing just about anything in the game that you can then use to raise the levels of your arts and skills. Now, since we've been discussing menus and whatnot, I figure now is a good time to discuss the shop menus as well. My Nintendo News has some wonderful footage that really allows us to see a much cleaner and less confusing iteration of the shop menu as compared to the original game. I'd also like to point out that a related tips feature is present here as well, and it's been showing up in quite a few other menus as well. It seems that we can expect to see tips for many different menus and screens throughout the game. Getting into our cleaned up shop menu then, below our character bar in the menu, we can toggle what kind of equipment we are looking at with the left and right bumpers. In this case, we are looking at headgear. We can press X to adjust what we want to see, though I'm not quite sure aside from shop lineup what else we will be looking for. Each specific piece of gear shows off its weight class, rarity, and level requirement, as well as its stats and resistances, how many times the gear has been upgraded, which in-game company manufactured it, which is always a nice bit of lore pomp thrown in, what bonus effects the gear has, and if there are any augment slots. In the case of this Survival Specs helmet, we can see it has one preset effect as well as one open augment slot. The right-hand side of the screen shows off our character model and its cumulative stats, taking the gear's own stats into account. We can press ZR to compare whatever piece we're looking at to what we have equipped, and holding ZR will alternatively hide our stats to let us see our full character model. We can also look at our model by simply pressing on the left stick. All in all, the shops are much more straightforward, but that's not all that's new with them. Alvaro Alonso of Hobby Consoles has stated that even if a piece of gear is sold off, its appearance is permanently registered in the fashion gear menu, so its cosmetic appearance will always be available for fashion gear. This is honestly pretty big because there are hundreds upon hundreds of clothing articles, many of them being recolors, that you never felt like selling off from the original game because what if you ever wanted to wear it? It's completely not the case anymore. You can free up and unclog that inventory and still have all the fashion at your fingertips. So then, with our shopping and accessorizing out of the way, let's jump into party member and character building changes next, starting with the active party tab that I had brought up a little bit ago. Now picture this, you're looking around for some characters to swap in and out of your party, but you have no idea where they are. They aren't around when you found them last time, and looking up their location online still sends you to the wrong spot. That is the common song and dance of the original game's party adjusting, and it is thankfully a thing of the past. With the active party member tab, you can quickly and efficiently change who is in your party in mere moments. Hovering over a party member will let you see a nice character animation for that party member. Below the character model will be their name and class, their character level, class level, and their affinity rank with the main protagonist. You can remove a character from the party by pressing down on the right stick, and you can use the ZR button to look at the status of the character. You can press X to set which character you want to control personally. Pressing the minus button will open up a tip screen that will give you details regarding the character, their abilities, and their playstyle. Now, something many of you may have noticed by this point, please take a look at the number of slots in the menu, 22 in total, and seemingly not including cross. The original game, if I recall, had 18 playable party members including cross, so with the writing clear on the wall, it's safe to say we will be getting new playable party members in the definitive edition. From this, we can also infer that with new characters will come new affinity missions, and that also means unique arts that are utilized by said characters, which then Cross can also learn by completing those affinity missions. Some people have pointed out that a new longsword ability was also shown off, though I can't quite recall from where, but this is likely where that would come from. Now, we may already know a few of these characters from past Nintendo trailers. For one, I wholly expect that the Lost Hero, aka the Black Knight, is going to be joining us, as well as the masked pilot of the Hraesvelg. Nail Null is also a strong contender to join us, and that leaves another opening for us to debate all over like it's a Super Smash Bros. DLC slot. Will it be the playable Vandom of my dreams? Perhaps Rothian fans will finally get some love, or maybe we'll just have a meme Tatsu character slot. Could we see an entirely new character come out of left field at this point? We simply need to wait and see. Now, this would also be a good time, though, to discuss Nintendo Dream showing off their latest edition of their magazine, which has special prints for Xenoblade Chronicles X, including this confusing page featuring several characters. I feel that some people are reading a little too into this, thinking this may be a playable character roster, and trust me, while Eleanor is a bit of a fun character to discuss, unless she's the masked member controlling the Hraesvelg, I highly doubt our main quest giver will be a playable individual. But I digress. In all seriousness, the Party Reserve menu is a more than welcome addition that I honestly see will help to remove a lot of unnecessary time wasted in searching for all of our members. I can recall feeling discouraged and almost even questioning if I wanted to recruit some of these people when I already was having such a big issue in finding them in the first place. But that's not all of the convenience our roster of party members is going to get. Oh no. On top of all of this, the requirements for affinity levels has been lowered considerably. What's more, inactive party members will still gain experience in the reserve. RPG Site believes, at least for the early levels, they stay considerably well leveled in relation to the main character. This was not the case in the original game, and having to level each and every character was certainly a bit of a chore. I can recall kitting out my main character's Skell and whittling away level 40 plus enemies, burning precious fuel just to get some character levels up. And lastly, per hobby consoles, battle points which are invested into arts and skills can be reset, so if we feel we have delegated our skill points incorrectly, either for our main character or for our party members, we can easily make adjustments to get our characters playing in a way that feels a little bit better to us. I cannot underscore just how impactful all of these changes to party management and character growth truly will feel. Speaking of whittling away at our enemies, we do have a new trick of the trade to utilize in combat, so let's talk a bit more in depth about quick cooldown. I believe I mentioned quick cooldown briefly in one of my previous videos, but to recap, new to combat in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is a quick cooldown bar. By expending some of this quick cast gauge, you can immediately activate an art that is on cooldown. This is perfect for making sure combos go off without a hitch, covering lost ground during an overdrive, clearing up smaller encounters more efficiently, and honestly for me, this will be a game changer for letting you respond to soul voices more frequently. I don't believe I discussed soul voices before, so for our new players hitting up X for the first time, soul voices are simply command requests from party members that ask you to use a certain colored art. Completing them offers various buffs, bonuses, and resources during combat, and with quick cooldown at our fingertips, we have the opportunity to make the most out of these soul voices. You would not believe the amount of times in the original game that you could not respond to a party member shouting out to use a melee art after you had already used all of yours and they're all on cooldown. You can't really do anything. It was infuriating and made you feel that you were often missing out on a core piece of a smoother combat experience. But with the quick cooldown bar, we will not have to experience that feeling as nearly as often as before. Now, the quick cooldown bar is always topped off at the start of combat, and new information from RPG Site reveals that the gauge can be replenished gradually by using auto attacks. So now, on top of earning TP, frequent auto attacks will give more opportunities to use your arts as well. But that's not all. In previous posts from Monolith Soft, I noticed that one clip had shown off a gauge with 6 bars, while another clip had shown off a gauge with 8. It turns out that this is related to exploration. I mentioned it a little earlier in this video, but all around Mira are a handful of energy discs, and these will be the key to expanding our quick cooldown gauge, and thus reward us with more opportunities to use our abilities in combat. Now, RPG Site goes on to reiterate that this feature really felt as though it helped to speed up early combat overall, and that they see how this feature can aid new players in getting more comfortable with combat as a whole. One caveat they noted though is that using quick cooldown for arts that requires tension points will not bypass that requirement, it will still require the exact same amount of TP. Meanwhile, Nintendo Life has verified that depending on what arts are being used, more of the quick cast bar is used. I had that same suspicion as well, so it's nice to see that reaffirmed. I've also personally noticed that in all the footage I've seen, quick cooldown does not appear to be available from the get-go. It seems to be unlocked in or after Chapter 3. Personally, I can't wait to see how the community as a whole will choose to interact with and use their quick cooldown bars, be it for soul voices, combos, or just straight up spamming damage. It is a more than welcome addition that will shake up our gameplay for the better. Alright, we're in the closing stretch of the video, and as you can no doubt tell by how long this video is so far, there has been a lot to talk about, and that's really only a fraction of what the game has to offer. At this point, I'd like to simply discuss everything else that I found, but couldn't quite fit in as nicely with the rest of this discussion. Honestly, working through this video has served up as a great reminder that when games have just so much ground to cover, it can feel quite a bit overwhelming, but I am glad to say that at least in game, the Definitive Edition has taken this into account. Coming to X in the Definitive Edition are 2 new tabs. We have the Miran Archives, a new compendium feature that compiles all of the information with regards to past events, characters, races, organizations, weapons and gear, locations, and keywords. We also have the Command Guide, an advice and tip compendium feature that lists information with regards to combat, menu and system management, and other tips, but it also includes a filter tab, so perhaps it will allow us to more quickly find the information we need to consult with. Both of these tabs are more than welcome additions. It is always very nice to have the information you actually need to be in the game itself, and the Miran Archives make me especially happy as we have just such a large and rich world that we sometimes either misremember some bits of information, or we just want a bit of a refresher for those times where we come back after a bit of a break. But that's not all. We can also refresh and sharpen our combat skills in the Blade Barracks. As per hobby consoles, the Blade Barracks will now have a training room. Although I've not come across any direct footage, it will be nice to be able to practice our rotations and combos. It'd also be very cool if we could use and practice overdrive here as well, so I really hope that will be the case. Lastly, there are 2 more points of interest with regards to personal expression. The first of which being that we can create titles for our characters that will be present on our character cards that we can then show off to other Blade members. The second feature isn't new, but rather a confirmation that emotes will be returning, allowing our playable character to perform up to 24 emotes and poses. These will be great screenshot potential and will also be a fun way to express ourselves when meeting up with fellow members of Blade while waiting to undertake online missions in the barracks. I personally would like an emote to express a long sigh of relief, however, because with that last bit of info, we have covered just about every new feature and change coming our way with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. It's been a heck of a long time since I worked on such a gargantuan video in such a short amount of time, and I'm sure you can hear my voice straining from time to time, so I hope that those of you sticking around to the end thoroughly enjoyed this video. But please let me know, who do you think are we going to see take up those new party member slots? Are you okay with the removal of Blade and Division points? Is this your first foray into the world of Mira? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe for more Xenoblade Chronicles, Monolith Soft, and Nintendo content. With all of that said, thank you once again for watching, and as always, have a great day.